Niece made that's just so good. Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be simultaneously like breaking and fascinating. Like it sounds like it's going to be a huge but also
So you want to get out your copies of your books because we are going to do a photo at the beginning of your book and your little ghost. And if you don't have a ghost, let us know.
I'm sure that it will not hurt to also.
Does anyone need it?
I heard that you are, I heard that you're in like 6th place from the first sale.
They turned into such an executive.
I've heard that 30 is the number you're shooting for.
30 more.
Right, exactly, yeah. Well, that part was implied. I made sure to text my mom and be like, don't worry, you hadn't started. It's 7:01.
What's that, 7:01?
It's currently 7:09. But the minute that the stream was late, I made sure to tell my mom to do shoot time.
Oh, okay.
Good, yeah. They've been excited to have the new grandson.
Like stops. This.
We're doing okay. They still haven't wanted to
Yeah.
it's okay.
A little bit.
Hopefully,
Well, it's not making perfect stuff.
Really is going to be
Is there a way to turn it without missing just so that the
she did.
No, yeah, a little bit. That one, right? It's that one. Just kind of capture. Oh yeah, it is the same as that. It's no.
It kind of looks like you did.
Which is like, it's like very fun, very fantasy. So the whole premise is that like there is like a series is surprise. Like she does actually have the ability to tell the future, but she also like
She's getting close to getting a picture of her.
And so she's like learning how to kind of be like very politicky and meanwhile I don't like set it up the way
It's very hard.
the plot is kind of centered around like an apple top tree that has to do with
That is more of a
potential symbolism in the end of the kingdom and like the first helps to navigate that. But like
how I got two dogs.
it was fun. I guess
Violet has balloons. Is it made like a girl or made as in like
yeah, so I've been reading that. I'm finally making my way through James History by Fonda Lucas. What else have I been reading? I started Yellow Pages. I got like
oh yeah, you see me? That thing seems locked.
yes, they're very stressful. But I also
All right, hello everybody, and welcome to the launch party for Ghosted. when Amanda was first like, yeah, I'm gonna do a retelling of Northanger, we were all like, as the second one? You sure? But Ghosted is actually so incredible, and here to talk so much more about it are Rebecca Spees and Amanda Quain!
No, everyone give it up for Sam because we had a lovely little moment just there where we were like, well, we're ready to go, and it's like,
we were all
okay.
waiting for someone to introduce me, and we realized no one was no one
Yeah.
remembered, no one was assigned.
No one informed me that I should have introduced Amanda,
Sam
but
did.
I'm very excited to be here. Hello, welcome. Yes. So first,
I don't want to be standing here the whole time, you guys.
I'm just gonna make. So first,
you can be ghost if you're back.
yeah. First things first. One of our favorite traditions that we do here at One More Page is before the event starts and proper, we want everybody to hold up their copy of Ghosted and their little ghosty friend.
That's not normally part of the tradition.
I'm here for a political science book. Hold up Ghosted. And our friend and Rosie here is gonna take a picture. Oh yeah, get in there, get in there.
Yes, I would like to see Amanda's face in this photo. Let me get
So hold up Trudy.
Oh, Trudy's here.
Yay!
You just can't see her. All right.
Yay! Hooray! Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you, Rosie.
You did
Nailed
it.
it.
All right. Hello, everyone. So, oh yes. So once more with feeling, if anybody has parked in the garage and has not picked up an event parking pass from Lelia, you need one of those or they will tow you. So
They really care tonight.
they
so
really
don't
care
mess
tonight.
around on that
So
one.
check in with Lelia and she will get you set up with one of those.
Yes, if you are my parents, I put it on your car already, so it's fine.
Yes. Yes.
If you are not my parents, I've done nothing. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Great. Cool. If in the middle of the event you suddenly remember, oh no, I didn't do that, fine, Lelia, she will take care of you. A couple of other housekeeping things. Hello, online folks. Hello, online visitors. Thank you for joining us so much. If you have any questions for Amanda, you can pop them in the comment box of whatever medium you are watching on.
Facebook or YouTube.
And we will incorporate those into the Q&A section. There's cookies, there's friendship bracelets. I will let everybody find those on their own time because we have an interview to do with the woman of the hour. Hello, friend.
Hi, Rebecca. I missed you.
I miss you too.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, my celeb shot. But happy book birthday to you and Ghosted. Yes, for someone who will start off easy. For someone who has wandered in off of the street and asks you, "Hey, what is your book about?" Give us the elevator pitch.
And for starters, be like, "Oh my God, do you need some water? Can I
Yes.
help you? You know where you are."
It's
But
hot out there.
Once we get past that, so Ghosted is a contemporary retelling of Northanger Abbey, which is Jane Austen's Gothic satire, and I'm sure the book you all know best of hers. If you don't know Northanger Abbey, though, it's totally fine. I've had several people who have not read Northanger Abbey read it. It's chill. Most people haven't, but you should. It's a very good book. But Northanger Abbey's Ghosted equivalent is about a high school senior named Hattie, who is the most anxious but hides it all girl in the entire world in her senior year, getting ready to apply for colleges, trying to push down as far as possible the grief that she still is dealing with after the death of her father, and reconnect with her mother, who is very much like the Ice Queen headmasters of her school, which just happens to be America's most notoriously haunted high school. No big deal. Allegedly haunted high school. Hattie hates ghosts. She's hated them ever since her dad, who she used to do ghost busting activities with, died. But she's I can put that part of my life away until she is paired as a new student ambassador to a transfer student, Kit Moreland, who was there on, and I still can't believe no one ever fought me on this, a ghost hunting scholarship. If you put private schools in your books, you can do anything.
Honestly, I bet there's weirder stuff.
There has to be. Yeah. I mean, it's not that much weirder than lacrosse, honestly.
Yeah. Or polo.
But Kit and Hattie fall in love over the course of the book. It takes so long, though. I'm so sorry. And over the course of it, they help each other, and Hattie learns to deal with the ghosts that are mostly a metaphor, but there are some good ghost stories in there, too, including cats. But the cats, I specifically say, all died of natural deaths of old age. Yes. After long and happy lives, these old ghost cats wander the halls and they're fine and happy. So if you were worried about that and you were gonna leave otherwise, it's chill.
Worry no more.
Was that a good elevator? That was like a 40-story elevator.
That was a high rise, like
Yeah.
Empire State Building.
Yeah,
elevator.
that was like a New York City elevator.
We'll
but
allow it.
We're working.
But
It's my first time like talking about it out loud in front of a large crowd.
oh my
so.
gosh, well that's exciting.
Yeah.
And to make it more exciting for you all, we are going to give you a little teaser of Ghosted.
Yeah.
Amanda is going to read from, I believe, the
The
prologue,
prologue, like the
Yes.
opening of the book.
Yeah, and I will be
Rebecca will be
coming,
playing Kit Moreland.
coming out of retirement.
Yeah. Neither of us have practiced this. Here we go.
Yeah.
I was 85% sure there was a ghost in this room, and Kit Moreland was grinning at me like it was the best thing that had ever happened to him. Maybe we should go, I whispered, as if whatever mysterious entity that was making the small, cramped room so cold wouldn't be able to hear me if I lowered my voice. Around us, the harsh December wind beat against the windows of the Abbey, tapping trees that offered a warning we hadn't yet heeded.
You're safe from me inside,
The wind seemed to say.
but you're not safe from whoever's in there.
Kit, come on,
Are you kidding?
he whispered back. That was good.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Good
I
action.
know, I can tell, you're trained. But whether he was showing deference to the spirit or to the tone of my voice was unclear. It was like he didn't even notice the way the shadows crept along the wall, how the cracks in the old yellowed plaster looked like they were reaching for us.
Hattie, this is what we've been waiting for. This is why we're here.
I could just barely make him out in the dim moonlight that forced its way through the age-stained windows, black beanie pulled down low over his forehead. His favorite maroon cable knit sweater inexplicably tied around his waist, even though it was freezing in here. He had on a black long-sleeve tee underneath, but he pushed the sleeves up to his elbows on that too. And you have this the sort of the interstitial bit that you said you were going to do.
I run warm when I get excited.
He'd said when I'd asked him about it earlier. Typical Kit. An answer to everything, a reason for everything. Including, apparently, a reason we shouldn't run away screaming from what just might be a paranormal entity. What if it's dangerous, I argued. We were currently crouched on the floor in the doorway of the old servants' quarters. Poky little rooms at the top of the old Abbey buildings, the servants' quarters came complete with creaky floorboards and dust-covered spider webs that would have been spooky even without the random cold spots and the half-dozen young girls who had died up here over the years. These rooms were used for storage now, but that didn't mean they were abandoned. In fact, I was starting to think they were very much occupied. What if whatever's in there tries to hurt us? There were no viable reports of Abbey ghosts acting malevolently, but you never knew. This could be the night they made their bone-chilling debut. I expected Kit to argue, or to roll his eyes and pull me into the room anyway, but instead a smile spread across his face. Slow. Delighted.
So you do think there's something in there?
That's not what I said. I'd been very careful with my words, in fact. Or at least I thought I had. A chill washed over me, and I shivered in my oversized sweater. When I was with Kit, it was harder to be careful.
If you didn't think there was something in there, you wouldn't be scared.
Ah! He nudged his shoulder against mine, and the contact, even through layers of wool, offered me the briefest of distractions from my concerns. Maybe I just don't want to fall through the floorboards. Oh, excuse me. Floorboards! My voice cracked. And Kit chuckled, low and quiet. You know, sometimes you write things and you don't think about what it would actually mean. My voice cracked and Kit chuckled, low and quiet. It was a real possibility with the way each floorboard shuddered under my weight, the long and slow creak that accompanied each shift in our position. But then he turned to me, his eyes serious, and I realized how close we were sitting, how close his face was to mine.
You really don't want to say it, do you?
Say what?
Sorry. I was on stage reading.
This time, my whisper was not entirely in deference to the ghosts.
That you believe in something.
He tilted his head to the side, and I was mesmerized. And I didn't know if I believed in ghosts, but God, I believed in Kit Moreland.
That the way you think about things may not be 100% right 100% of the time.
85%.
What?
That's how likely it is there's a ghost in there. I nodded into the room, lit by the blinking of the EMF detector Kit held in his hand. Its red light cast a bloody shadow against walls that were dappled with age. 85%. Potentially, if the EMF detector's readings from downstairs are to be believed. The light had been so strong, stronger than I'd ever seen it. And even then, probably not. Even as I said it, I shivered.
Right.
He smiled, then stood slowly and held his hand out to me. I could only stare at it, his long fingers. Make them longer. There you go. The way he held them out like a promise. They seem to say.
And for once in your life, allow yourself to be surprised by something.
And then that's you again, actually.
You can give it a try, though.
What? I asked, even though I knew what he was going to say, because it was all he ever talked about. And in anyone else, it might have been obnoxious, but when Kit did it, he was the sun.
Believing.
The room was so cold, and there might be a ghost. I looked at Kit's hand and thought about the question he was asking. It had never been a matter of whether I could believe in ghosts. The question was, did I want to?
Excellent. Well, after that delightfully ad hoc reading, official questions. You have officially conquered the dreaded sophomore novel, the sophomore slump. How are you feeling now that Ghosted is out in the world? How has this process been different from your debut accomplished?
Weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's been good. It's been very different. I'd say that the writing was much harder and this part is much easier. Because the writing accomplished was like, honestly, it was like a dream of writing a book. I drafted the first draft in 6 weeks, like straight through. I had like 10,000 word writing days. We sold it and we had edits, but they weren't like wildly hard edits. This is the first book I wrote under deadline, so like I sold this book on proposal, so like 75 pages an outline, and those outlines never stay the same by the time you actually finish the book. It's more of a sort of idea that you could be able to tell a story, and they're like, yeah, all right, sure, here's some money.
Okay.
And so writing it under that, plus I was going through a pretty hard time when I was writing this book. We had just moved away. It was during COVID, but like I had been working in the store for all of COVID. This is my first time like being isolated like that. But I like to think that I think it's important that you don't think that you have to be in a bad place to make good art, or like that suffering does not lead to art, because that's stupid.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a reason why people then like don't get help, because they're like, but my art. It's like, no, you're unhappy. Like, be better. And so I think that this book is not like so much. I mean, like with therapy and medication and stuff, you don't just say it. If anyone does manage to just say it, please talk to me. I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
But like this book was not so much something that came out of the depths of my dark places, but the thing that came out of me getting better from those dark places, I think. Like, I had to really wrestle with the feelings in the book in the same way that Hattie wrestles with her grief, and her sort of what is probably would be called depression and anxiety and all sorts of things that if she ever bothered talking to somebody, they might deal with.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's a book about hope and about believing in yourself and, like, believing in the world against all odds, and that was, like, what I needed during that time. So coming out of that now and being, like, really, really proud of what I was able to put together and like the journey that we all went on together. This is a really fun experience. I went to the zoo today.
Yeah.
Like, I had a great time. I saw the pandas, guys. Go see the pandas before they go back to China. They're delightful. But no, it's very different. But I'm feeling a lot more confident in myself as a person and like as a writer, and like I was proud of accomplished too, but I'm really proud of being able to put this one together and the sort of things we came to with it. Also, she's like thick, so
She's a thick girl.
She's a chunky girl, so
Yeah.
there's a lot going on in here.
Yeah. Well, and so I'm curious that those feelings of hope and working through those sort of tough times in your life, was that because you knew that you were adapting Northanger Abbey?
Yeah.
Were those feelings something that you brought to Northanger Abbey, or were they things that surprised you in the writing of the book?
A little bit of both. So the actual like inspiration for this, so like obviously inspiration's a little bit weirder when you're on your second book, because your first one you're like, an idea has come to me in a dream. The second book is like, okay, like they want to have options for another book they can buy for me. I need to write down 5 options. What are they? So it's a little bit less of like a sort of like, Chrome wandering through the woods for process. But this
Picking
book,
ideas from
exactly
the idea
from
tree.
the idea tree. But this book was in a way very much inspired by the show Never Have I Ever, which I love. If you haven't seen it, you absolutely should. The last season just finished and it's magnificent. But specifically with an argument I have with my husband about Never Have I Ever. Hi, Dustin. So in that show, a lot of it has to do with the main character, Davy, is dealing with grief after her father dies, like during an orchestra concert she's in when she's a freshman in high school. And the relationship she has with her mom, who is a challenging person in many ways. And like, it sort of comes to a head at various points when they sort of are dealing with the idea that like, did the wrong parent die, but like that's what they're sort of each feeling in their own way and in their own heart. And I was really sympathetic towards the mother. Yeah. And that's like, oh my God, she lost her husband, like she's doing her best.
Not to say that Dustin was not sympathetic towards the mother, but Dustin was very much team like, no, Davy, it's her daughter. She needs to do everything to take care of her, which is like a good sentiment. You're correct. I'm glad you feel that way as a person who I am married to, but
That being said,
I was really interested in the idea that like mothers are still people,
mm.
which is something that thank you. Dad, you can clap too. It's something that like is often forgotten about in society. Like sort of the most invisible person to the world is like the middle-aged mother, right? Not
Trudy
to me.
agrees.
Yeah, Trudy agrees, but like society forgets women when they put them in these roles, and society doesn't allow women to exist in several places, both being like strong and being sad, like being a good mother and being a good leader. Being in a position of authority and like a strong member of a community, and also being soft and feminine, like those things are rarely allowed to exist.
Yeah.
And I was really interested in that coexistence. And so when I was thinking about Northanger Abbey, I was thinking a lot about the main sort of family in Northanger Abbey. So you have in Northanger Abbey, you have Catherine, who's our main character, our young heroine, who's off to seek her true love. But the love she finds is this guy, Henry Tilney, and his family is just bad. It's just very broken and sad. They live in a Gothic mansion, and his mother has died. And his father, Commander Tilney, or General Tilney, excuse me, is very
Get
like
the rank right.
I feel bad. Is very like stern and like no feelings allowed. And the main character, Catherine, like because she loves Gothic novels, develops this idea that Henry's dad is a vampire probably and killed his mom.
Yeah, sure.
Because that's the sort of thing that you might think if you're an impressionable young, like 16-year-old who's away from home for the first time and has read nothing but Gothic novels.
Yeah.
And so
You read Twilight one too many times.
And so I was really interested in the idea of like what is that relationship like as a woman? Because if you take sort of the vampire idea and you switch it, and then you get this idea of like we have Headmistress Tilney, Dr. Tilney, who is our mother in our book, who's the head of Northanger Abbey, said notoriously allegedly haunted high school, and lost her husband 4 years ago and has no idea how to deal with it. She shut herself off from her family. She threw herself into her work, and she became like what someone like Kit in this book might think of as like a monster because she doesn't know how to connect with her daughter or her other daughter or her son or anybody. But I wanted to make that less black and white and like see with the way that Hattie also deals with her grief. It's a person who wants to be like her mother, but also like has never managed to make that connection because her mother's so closed off. But like just because Hattie is grieving and her mom's doing a bad job taking care of her doesn't mean her mom's not grieving too.
Yeah.
And it's not like her mom should be forgiven for her neglect because it's still something that they need to work through. But like I think it's in the layers of recognizing the way that grief affects people is really interesting to dig into.
Yeah. And so with that, what you're talking about, we kind of see from the original Northanger Abbey that both Henry Tilney and Commander Tilney are both in Northanger Abbey male characters.
Yes.
But, so you talked a little bit about changing, Headmistress Tilney and exploring that. But did that also factor into changing the Tilney character into Hattie for Ghosted?
Yeah, so also I wanted to see how she dealt with like the layers of grief. And also, I don't know, like I like a female main character. Like I like writing complicated girls going through challenging times. I think it's really important to see that you can be complicated and not always make good choices and still be loved. And that's something that I feel like I really worked on and accomplished, and something that sort of takes its next step here. Like you can be a difficult person and still be able to learn from your mistakes and still deserve love and affection from that, and be able to move your way through the world even if you're not just like cheerful and perfect and good and like make good decisions all the time. Because like who does,
right?
Especially when you're a teenager. I mean, I did, Mom and Dad, but anybody else.
Well, I think also what I love so much about your writing and Accomplished and Ghosted is that you can make those mistakes and still be loved, but also that those mistakes aren't.
They're never. Like
still
those
are
mistakes,
mistakes,
and
and like
they're not permanent, but you still have to deal with them.
Yeah, which I really appreciate because I think it makes these characters ring really true, even though like in my brain I'm like, oh, it's Northanger Abbey, but like it's also Hattie and Kit and Mrs. Dr. Tilney. I'm so sorry. I'm part of the problem.
Sit in the patriarchal corner and think about what you did.
Listen, sometimes you make mistakes and you have to.
It's true. Don't worry, we'll go see Barbie later and it'll all work out.
But yeah, so we kind of hit the next like 3 questions in a little bit. But kind of aside from the grief and the layers of grief, were there other things from Northanger Abbey that you wanted to bring into Ghosted, and either put your own spin on it, or what things that you wanted to change completely and kind of go into your own direction?
Well, I had to make it spooky.
Obviously.
So Northanger Abbey is a really interesting work of Austen. I'm going to sit and geek out on you for like 2 minutes.
Yes, tell us about Jane Austen.
So Jane Austen was a female writer from England.
She was female.
I know. I know. I'm so sorry, but she was. She did a good job though. But Jane Austen wrote this book fairly early in her like writing career, and it's written as a satire. It's like not a sort of straight love story or straight commentary on. She wasn't really writing romances, but like not a straight family story. Mm-hmm. Gothic novels, like for example, The Mysteries of Udolpho, which is referenced as sort of an Easter egg in the book for those of you when you get there. Was like they were these like dramatic Gothic novels where it's almost sort of like the bodice rippery thing. They were like thrilling and scandalous. Exactly. And like young women were like reading these and like feeling emotions and like and it's actually, and I will say props to, for those of you who, you should all read Northanger Abbey, but I also highly recommend the movie that PBS did.
Is that the one with Felicity Jones?
Yep. And it has JJ Field in it.
I do love JJ Field.
It's got an all-star cast, and it's on YouTube, and it's free to watch there. But they do a really good job. Like she keeps having these dream sequences where she's being like captured by pirates who are wearing like a very flowy deep V shirt, and like that's kind of the vibe that she was going for. And so when she wrote Northanger Abbey, it's great. It's so fun.
If you told me there were dream ballets.
No, but it's a delight, and like that's sort of what Austen was spoofing. She takes this young girl and has her like imagine this Gothic nightmare, even though nothing's happening. He's just like, yeah, my mom died.
People die, Catherine.
Yeah, it's like 1813. They die all the time.
They coughed once.
It just collapsed. But so she wanted to kind of play with the idea that like it was sort of you got caught up in the romance. And swept up in your feelings, and the feelings are kind of the same thing as these like big Gothic feelings. So this is not a satire in the same way that is, because I think it'd just be hard to spoof. I think that this is more accomplished with a little bit more of a direct sort of retelling or relation to Pride and Prejudice, and this is more heavily and lovingly inspired by Northanger Abbey. Not all we have a lot of the characters coming in, like Hattie's little brother Liam is an equivalent to Henry's little sister Elizabeth. They go on a similar journey. Isabel Thorpe. From the original, who is Catherine's best friend, Northanger Abbey. She actually stays as a girl and is Izzy Thorpe, who is Hattie's best friend in this. When that changed, like, we did that in, like, the last draft, that Izzy made her way in there. She used to be Isaac Thorpe. Ooh. And we, like, had, like, mixed things up. But she does, I don't want to talk too much about Izzy, because she's got fun things scattered through, but, like, that's a cool, like, friendship dynamic that I like in here. But it's just, I think this is lovingly inspired by Northanger Abbey. It's not a direct adaptation. But I do love the book, and I love Austen, and so I hope it's a well done, loved. I hope you can feel the love I have for Northanger Abbey in it.
Do you love Jane Austen?
I have some feelings about Jane Austen. I also want to shout out briefly, because spookiness is not necessarily my main forte. I am sort of, when you see I'm the Barbie to the Oppenheimer of the world. Yes. But I had to put a lot of atmospheric stuff in here because it like has to read Gothic. So shout out to my dear friend who's watching it online, Ann Fraistat.
Yes,
she was supposed to be here tonight, but she has COVID, so she's not. You're all welcome. But she writes horror, and she writes amazing horror. Her first book came out last year. It's called What We Harvest. We have paperback copies here now. It's a really good like survival horror that I adore. She's another one coming out next year.
And I have it in my questions that Anna
to talk about Anne.
Well, yes, but also Anne apologizes for making you read all of that horror.
It's true, but so shout out to Anne for helping me. I would just like send her pages and be like, "Is this scary?" And she's like, "No."
They're laughing halfway through.
Right. So like, they keep kissing. I'm like, "I know."
We will get back to the spookiness in a little bit, but I want to talk about Kit. Our dear boy.
We love Kit.
And he,
my tall boy.
Your tall Kurt Cobain looking boy.
He's described actually as a stretched out Timothy Chalamet, which in retrospect is a slightly horrifying image.
Stretched out more?
It's like you took Timothy Chalamet and you gave him extra elbows.
He already looks like a Victorian orphan child that feeds soup. expression. This is how I knew I was old. Was when people were like, "Oh my God, Timothy Chalamet." I'm like, "What? Not even a cheeseburger." Like,
I got it in Dune. In Dune, I got it. No, he's
Oscar Isaac is in the same movie.
But
Anyway.
and Liam, Patty's little brother, describes him at one point by saying, "Well, you always like guys who look like poets," which is one of my favorite things. Made its way in there.
I forgot about that. That's a brutal burn, and I love it.
It's a true little brother zing.
But our dear boy kid,
Yes.
he and Hattie are obviously quite the opposite in many, many ways.
Mhm.
But if you could have a question, yeah, it is. This is more of a statement, actually. No, if you could talk a little bit about what draws them together and how you crafted that relationship.
Yeah.
And Amanda, I just want to say, Ann apologizes for making you read all that.
It's
Yes.
okay. I loved it. No, so Ann and I are critique partners, so we switch back and forth. Whenever something really creepy was coming up, she would highlight the text for me, so I would know to like prepare myself for it. So it was fine. We
It's very
skipped over some of the worst bug stuff in her next book. But it's really good though. You'll love it. But yeah, so Kit is a delight. I adore our optimistic golden retriever ghost boy. So the thing about what draws Hattie and Kit together is Hattie is very closed off, and everyone in her life has pretty much accepted that. And Kit comes in, and he's the first person who doesn't. Like she says something, and he's like, "That seems wrong." Like let's talk more about that. She's like, "Oh my God." No one's because she's done such a good job of putting together this mask of the perfect person that no one like feels the need to unpack it. Because they're like, "Well, Hattie's doing fine. Look how well she's crushing it." Because the first one to be like, Are you okay? And he's got this optimism and this hope about him that I think she can't help but be attracted to, because it's something that she's lost entirely since her dad died. So that is sort of what initially draws them together. Plus, banter.
Of course. Amanda Quain special.
Amanda Quain special. They do banter quite a bit. So
which we love the banter.
Yeah.
And moving back into the spookiness, because obviously Ghosted is set at Northanger Abbey, America's most allegedly haunted high school.
Allegedly notoriously haunted high school.
I'm just going off of Anne wrote most of these questions, so
Yes.
shout out again to Anne. So I'm also talking. Take two. Northanger Abbey.
Yes.
Most haunted, allegedly, notoriously haunted, whatever high school.
Yeah.
And the original title for this book, which I am astonished that they let you keep as long as they did, was The Ghosts Are a Metaphor.
R.I.P.
Pour one out for a real one. But can you talk about what ghosts mean to your different characters, especially Hattie and Kit?
Yeah. So
What are they a metaphor for?
So alternative sort of taglines for that were the real ghosts were inside you all along. And the real ghosts are the friends we made along the way. No, I mean, so the ghosts there are no actual ghosts in this. There's no real jump scares. There's no giant hauntings. We don't get a Slimer coming through the walls unless you write that in yourself, and I can't stop you from doing that. And this is also what I think is so interesting about Gothics in general, because the Gothics that Jane Austen was drawing from were never about the ghosts.
Yeah.
They were about what the ghosts meant.
The promise
the
of
promise
the ghosts.
The promise of ghosts. Like, very few.
That's a great band name. The
Right?
Promise of Ghosts.
Write it down. Very few of them had actual ghosts in them either. They had spooky hallways and like red, blendy colors and like women looking longingly over moors. Because the ghosts are so often like the dreams that you used to have, or the life that you thought you had, or the people who you thought would be in your life who maybe aren't, standing in your corner like talking to you. They might be, I don't know, but like they're everything that you wish existed in your life, or everything that you wish didn't. Because I think a lot of this is about being haunted, and that's so rarely about actual jump scares and more about being haunted by your regrets or the way you've acted or the way you wish you could treat people or the way people treated you. So the ghosts, I mean, in many ways, Hattie is dealing with the sort of metaphysical ghost of her father, because he is what's really haunting her. Like, he had this big dream for them. They were going to come to Northanger Abbey. He loved ghosts, and they were going to go ghost hunting together. And then he dies really quickly. And
so what do you do with all of that?
Yeah, so she takes all that and she says, absolutely not, throws it into the deepest, darkest recesses of her mind and pretends it never happened to her, reinvents herself, But you can't shake something like that, especially when you never deal with it.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the main ghost that she's dealing with. Kid is looking for real ghosts. Sorry, Kid's looking for the real ones. And I'm not. So what I will not say is not necessarily that ghosts don't exist in this universe. That's not. The question for me that was interesting is never will our ghost appear or not.
Yeah.
It's will we deal with the ghosts we have inside of us that were there all along.
Because as we all know, to find ghosts, you have to deal with your own ghosts.
Exactly. You have to look deep inside.
Yeah. And
Especially if you're possessed, and
then you really got to get that stuff.
That's one of Anne's books. So.
And kind of as a fun sort of bumper before we open it up for audience questions, do you have a favorite ghost story? Just in your life.
In my life or in the book?
In your life.
Oh gosh.
Or in the book.
Can I do one from the book?
Yeah.
Because I don't do ghost stories
Yeah.
in real life. I'm so easily scared. I always say it's not that I don't believe in ghosts, or I do, but I believe in them enough to be cognizant and cautious of it.
Yeah.
I don't want a ghost to think I don't believe in it.
Yeah. There are more things in heaven and earth. I respect that ghost.
Exactly. If there's a ghost here, I respect you.
I respect you.
This is a loving homage to your kind.
What's up, ghost? It's me, your boy.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't have a lot of experience with ghost stories in real life.
My elementary school was haunted.
Oh no.
Yeah.
See, that was inside you, and now you're dealing with it. You're welcome. We're actually gonna all go around and put out one trauma we had later and talk about it. So no, my favorite ghost story in here. So there are two that will destroy you, and that's the twins, which you'll get to. The ever working nuns, which makes me sad to think about. But the best one's the cats. So let me tell you about the cats.
Please tell me about the cats.
So back in the day, Northanger Abbey was full of mice. Because it's an old abbey building. It's an old abbey that's built in the 1700s when churches were coming big in the United States. And they got turned into a secular institution of learning after being a place where they trained soldiers and nurses in World War II. So you get a lot of ghosts from that and stuff like that. And then it became a secular school. But the cats. So you have all these mice. And then they're like, this is too many mice. Let's get a bunch of cats. But then there were so many cats. But they're not going to do anything with the cats. So they just sort of have cats now, all over Northanger Abbey. And the cats used to sneak into the student rooms because, especially when it was an all-boys school, they would always be, hiding food in their rooms. And the cats would sneak into the rooms and get the food. Now, naturally, eventually, these cats die of natural causes, surrounded by their families, holding everyone's paws.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all 45 years old when they die. Yeah, every human who loves them has already died, so it's chill.
It's all good.
But every now and again, you can still hear meowing outside of the dorm rooms of Northanger Abbey as the cats try to get in for the food the students may have left there.
That's fun. Spooky cat.
And it was you need slightly more ghost stories. I'm well, here's a fun one. So that's my favorite one. But the other ones I won't talk too much about because they're a little more plot relevant. But I do make myself cry every time I read the twins. And I made Carly cry a lot with that one. Because I went. So my friend Carly is here. Raise your hand, Carly. Most of you, a lot of you know her. And I went to her house in the last week of editing this book, and I made her listen to me read the twins story out loud, which is this devastation of a ghost story. And then she just had to look at me for another hour. I was do you think it's good? She's who are you? How dare you? I'm trying to work at my job. What are you doing? So I hope you guys like that one. But the cats is the most fun.
The ghost cats.
The ghost cats.
And with the ghost cats, I'd like to open it up for audience questions, if there are any. If someone on the One More Page staff could keep an eye on the chat, and if our online guests have any questions, drop them in the comment box. But yes, does anybody have any questions for Amanda? If you don't, I have other lightning round questions, but. Oh, yes, a question.
It's not a question, but it's a comment.
Oh, God.
From who?
Saying, my cat was watching with me until you started talking about cats.
Did you say that was from Amber, Rosie?
Yes.
Oh,
Hi, Amber.
And then Kathleen Quain said that it reminded her of the cats at Ernest Hemingway's house.
Yes. Who are actually a large part of my next book, so we're seeing a few.
Oh, yeah. I'll come back to that in case nobody else has any questions.
I have a question.
Thank you. Yes, Mom.
So how did you determine to switch the genders of the main characters?
I mean, a lot of it was that I wanted to deal with the way, I wanted to talk about women, and there's Catherine Morland's story. There's not a lot to change in it. She like has a very lovely time and she falls in love and then she has some sadness and things sort of happen around her. But like I didn't have anything I wanted to say about her. I had things I wanted to say about Henry Tilney. And I just like writing about girls.
And I have to say, I have not read the book or seen the movie of Northanger Abbey, and I've read this book, and it's great.
There you go. But for those of you who are Northanger Abbey fans, I know we have a few of them here. There are Easter eggs from Northanger Abbey in here that you can appreciate. So, yes.
World building question. So we have like two different like prep school stories in your books. We had Pemberley in your first, and now we've got Northanger Abbey. What were like the differences in the process of like building these fictional boarding schools?
Ooh, that's a good question. So fun fact, technically it's the same universe. The scene was unfortunately cut in which Northanger Abbey went to a track meet at which Pemberley Academy was also competing. Because there was
one of the athletes Charles Bingley.
Yeah, just Charles. He's like 22-year-old man. Why could he be an athlete? And he would though. Anybody?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's just running next to your track. But so a lot of it I sort of had to pick it because a lot of Pemberley Academy accomplished is based on my time at Cornell when I went to college, and that's sort of upstate New York. I'm like, okay, it can't be the same. So I picked this one up and I put it in the Hudson Valley, a place I know very little about. So I apologize if I messed it up.
And I, a Southerner, I'm like, those are the same things.
I mean, so this one was really informed by the Gothicness, and I actually had a lot of fun because world building is not normally my like best feature. We always joke that like my ideal book is just two voices bantering in a room where it's just white walls and you don't have to describe anything else except for like jokes. But it was really fun to make the sort of like the spookiness, and so I'm like, I need to describe something. There's a gargoyle over there. Like these sconces are from 1410, and things like that. So that was really fun to sort of build up the character of the school because, of course, the character of Northanger Abbey is a really important part of the original. So adding that spookiness. Plus, we're involved in the school in much more of a way. Like we have, because we're sort of tied in with the headmistress. And then I also got to put Hattie and her family live in a little cottage on campus, so I got to sort of lean into that too. And so that was fun. But I think the spookiness is what really like separates them, and that was really fun to play with. Yes, Eileen.
From the folks watching, Anne wanted to know, what was your favorite character or moment from the book?
Oh gosh, I have a lot of them. I mean, it's hard for me to not pick Kit as my favorite because I just love him. I love Hattie too, but Kit I incorporated I have a lot of friends with whom I tend to have really rambling philosophical conversations with. Several of you are here, and I apologize for that. And I sort of really wanted to pick that trait up and put it into Kit. Like I kind of in my head call him like, Kit, do you ever think Moreland? And they get into these long like discussions about like the meaning of love and discussion about fate and like, do you think the reason you know people is because you're supposed to, or you just happen to find the people you happen to find? And that was so much fun to write because I love writing rambling, introspective chaos. And Kit really captured that. Plus, I made him from Florida, like myself, just because I thought it was silly if a ghost hunter was from a place where everything was kind of new. So he had like no ghost hunting experience. He's like, I slept overnight in a museum once that was built in like 1980.
That's historic in Florida.
Like he's probably fought an alligator, but he's never dealt with a ghost.
That has to be the like online exclusive.
Exactly.
Like holiday
Kit
special.
Moreland rides an alligator to Thanksgiving. Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
But that was really fun, and I loved writing all of those little scenes where they get to just like ramble on and like pick. Because I think it's also, I love when people can meet each other intellectually as well as like with chemistry, and these two really meet each other intellectually in a way that I thought was really fun to build up.
That's great. No, I can't stop thinking about Kurt Cobain, Timothy Chalamet riding a gator.
Long Timothy Chalamet.
Another question from the online group.
Yes.
Are there any ghost stories that you had to cut?
Ooh. Not ghost stories, but there was a ghost-related thing that I will tell you about that has to do with Anne and what happens when a contemporary author teams up with a horror writer to brainstorm your book. So there's sort of a movie within the book here called What Cries Beneath that in the book is a cult film that was set and filmed at Northanger Abbey like back in the 90s. And it has this huge cult following. It's a little like Blair Witch Project-y where it's kind of like, did this sort of thing really happen? Like there were mysterious disappearances on the set. Did people die? Stuff like that. And Kit's a huge fan of What Cries Beneath. because naturally, and Hattie's best friend Izzy is the daughter of the guy who directed What Cries Beneath. So she's very involved in that, and she of course hates What Cries Beneath because of that. But every year the school in December puts on Cry Fest, which is sort of like a big horror festival where they they bring in like actors and this director and stuff to like talk about the movie, and people like come in to like have their sort of like Rocky Horror / Blair Witch experience at the school. Now around that point in the book, I needed something to happen where I needed like Izzy and Kit, who had always kind of clashed, to have this big break. Like Hattie needs to be like, Izzy, we're done. I'm on Kit's side entirely, and you're dead to me. And we had to figure out what that was. And so I was talking to Anne, as I often do on the phone, and I was kind of like brainstorming, like, what can we do? And I was like, what if like we did something weird, like Izzy like traps Kit under the school, like in one of the tunnels where they film What Cries Beneath, and they like, and this came from me, so it's really my fault. And they like, I don't know, like make it seem like he's getting actually haunted. Now, if I was talking to another contemporary writer, I'm sure they would have been like, that seems like a lot. But Anne said, yeah. She's like, and what if we like rigged it up? And I was like, yeah. And like in the movie, blood drips from the wall. So like, what if Kit sees blood dripping from the wall from this underground tunnel, but he's like trapped in because it caves in around him. And we like come down and we find Kit like in fetal position crying in a corner.
See, I was expecting to be like, and then Anne was like, and then he dies.
I mean, basically break it down to the barest bit of a boy that you can. And so I was like, yeah, cool. And we just like fit into this, and I wrote it. And like a week later, I was like, oh no. So that was sort of the story. I think we changed it. You'll see what happens now. It's still challenging emotionally, but it's not like it's traumatized. Yeah, he doesn't think that he's actually being pulled into hell like happens in the movie. So that was the most haunty thing that was cut, but it was a fun scene to write.
I feel like that's the like you do this book from Hattie's perspective, and then like the from Kit's perspective, and it's like pure art.
Exactly. He's like, there's ghosts here.
Like, there's real
They're trying
ghosts.
to kill me.
Amazing. Any other questions from the audience? Yes, Joey.
What would you say would be the ideal like setup to read this book? Like if you had a great setting, a perfect setting to read.
And for the online folks, the question was if there was a perfect setting to read Ghosted, what would that setting sort of set up?
Perfect. Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first best thing is in the car on your way home right now. Pull over if you're driving. If you have a passenger, have them read it out loud to you. The audiobook is also available today, so you can just pop that in and you're set. If we're going for like pure atmosphere, then you want to be cozy. You want it to be a little spooky. You perhaps want to light the official Ghosted candle available for sale here tonight. Shout out to North Ave Candle Company in Pittsburgh, which is a literary candle company. A lot of you who are familiar with the store know we've been stocking them for years. And Amanda, who runs it, a different Amanda, not me.
Surprise!
She and I got to know each other since I'd been doing our candle ordering here, and since she lives in Pittsburgh, where I live now, I got to like go to her candle lab and actually like mix scents to make this one. So this one, it's like tobacco, flannel, and like cozy rain, and it also has a little ghost charm in it. It's the cutest thing. It smells so nice.
That smells very good.
It smells very good. You guys can come up and smell it if you want.
Yeah.
Or there's others up there available for
You
sale.
have to smell with purchase.
Yes. So you want that. I think you do want a flannel. If you're reading it, like it's summer now. I know it's not quite cozy season yet, but just like turn your air conditioning up really high. Maybe wait for it to be night, and you can like pull down the curtains. Maybe if it's like a thunderstormy kind of night like tonight, chef's kiss. It's perfect.
Ooh.
Yeah. And maybe with somebody that you love next to you.
I forget what the line was. Awesome. How much time do we have, do you think? One more question? And if not, we can pull some. I have an ending question that we can do.
Pull us in.
There we go.
Oh, no. Yes. Billy.
I am creeped out by six-toed cats. So what do you think's scarier? The ghosts and ghosted, or these new cats that you're writing about?
Yes. I think.
Which also leads me into my ending question.
Yes.
So let's just tack it on there, which
Yes.
is tell us about your next book.
Yes, we'll do 1 too. So
Yeah.
don't worry, all the cats in here, not only are they dead, they have the regular amount of toes. So that's chill. You don't worry about that one bit and ghosted. I mean, I love the 6-toed cats, so tying it into my next book, I got another book coming out next summer, probably around the same time. We'll have a better sense of that in a few months. It's called Dashed. Keeping our ED theme, and it is a contemporary sequel to Sense and Sensibility. And this one puts Margaret Dashwood on a cruise ship.
Oh my god, our lunch party is going to be
It's going to be on a boat. Everyone get cruise themed. Everyone stock up on your Dramamine now.
Hawaiian
Get your
shirts.
boating license. My dad can teach you. It'll be great.
Hawaiian shirts and Dramamine. Let's
Yes.
go.
So it sees Margaret Dashwood at age 18, so about 5 years after the events of Sense and Sensibility, but also like 5 plus 200 years. To set modern. And Edward Ferrars, her brother-in-law, because he and Eleanor are married at this point. He is a chaplain, and he, which is like a boat pastor, and he gets a 6-week contract.
No, hold on. I think we have to pause. Because chaplains can be not on a boat.
Yeah, but
This particular chaplain is a boat.
Yeah,
is
so
a boat priest.
he's not always a boat priest. He's more just a regular pastor.
He's a boat preacher.
He gets a 6-week contract to be a boat preacher, and he and Eleanor and Margaret, for her high school graduation present, go on this trip. That at the last minute, their other sister Marianne shows up too, revealing that she and the beloved Colonel Brandon have broken up. I'm so sorry.
You're gonna have the Austinizing.
I know. It's my most controversial move yet. And she is here to tear Margaret Summer apart. And it involves fake dating, cruise ships, a good amount of 6-toed cats, but they're like mentioned. You don't have to like deal with them. They're just sort of off. They're like off page, you know.
Off page 6 toes.
So like 6 total toes?
Yeah.
Ernest Hemingway's cat, like, so in that, you go to the Ernest Hemingway house in Key West, which I was very lucky on. My sister and I went on a research cruise for this trip where I actually found a cruise that had the same itinerary I had written for the book.
Amazing.
Which was amazing, so we went on that naturally, and I wrote it off of my taxes. And we like went to all the places that I thought I would want to include, and the Ernest Hemingway house is an amazing place. Whether you're a Hemingway fan or not, it's still a cool place. Hey, we love Old Men and Sea.
No, we don't.
My dad's right there.
He's not old. He's in the prime of his youth.
You're right. But Ernest Hemingway's house is filled with 6-toed cats because they're bred that way on the ships that like came over that were cargo ships because they were extra good mousers because with the extra toes they could kill more easily. And so the house there's I think 64 current cats, and they're all descendants of like those original cats in the house. And there's all these signs that are like, "Don't sit on the furniture," and then there's just cats on them. It's great.
I do love that.
It's so much fun. So yeah, we go to Key West, we go to the Bahamas, we go parasailing. There's a hurricane. There's feelings. It's both.
Oh.
The hurricane might be a metaphor. So.
Hey. But also not because it is a real
It is a real hurricane in this one, yeah. But yes, that will come out next summer, so keep an eye out for that. I've been getting the initial cover sketches for that, and they're really cool. We're going in a new direction. So.
Oh my god.
Yeah, get your summer reading ready because it's going to be like the beach read of your life.
I'm so excited. Well,
that's
now
actually
that
what
we
Oprah
can
told me about it.
You're on a phone call with Oprah. So I think on that note, we will sail off into the sunset. We will meet everybody back here next summer with our Hawaiian shirts and our Dramamine.
Yes, and make sure that you have a valid passport when we go out into sea.
Yes. So everyone, thank you all so much for coming. Give it up for Amanda Quain.
Is not always the same hullabaloo as at first, and to have you all still here and supporting me just is the absolute best thing. So thank you so much.
Trying to make me cry right now, man.
That's all I want to do.
You're all amazing. If you at the point at which you stand up, if you could kindly fold your chair and put it against something that's not a person, that would be amazing. And then we'll
or a dog
line or a dog. And then if you are a person who bought the book here and didn't do an online order, there's stickers that are incoming, and we will mail them to you. But if you could just add your name and your mailing address to this beautiful clipboard, I'm going to put it up here. here.
Only
And-
if you did not purchase it online.
Yeah, if you purchased it online,
We
we
have
already
yours,
have
yeah.
all your information, but not in a creepy way, and we will. We appreciate your patience, and hopefully you all have the print, which is gorgeous. I don't know who did it. I can't remember the artist's name, but it's amazing.
She's great.
She's so good. I will look it up later. And
Tell her.
yeah, thank you guys so much. Amanda, thank you for writing books that are like literally they make me laugh so much, and then they really just break my spirit, and then they rebuild it though. And
Like
it's
Kit
beautiful.
Moreland in the tunnels.
Thank you, online friends.
Thank you, online friends. But yes, so if you, I will.
Oh, and also when you guys come up, if you can sign my copy of the book as well. This is not actually my copy, but I'm gonna
Bye,
take
everyone.
That's what.
Yeah, yeah, great.